So you've got an understanding that if you discount, it cuts away at your contribution margin. And so you don't want to do a blanket 20, 30% off discount. And you want to look for other ways that you could discount products or have an offering to incentivize customers, but you don't want it to impact your bottom line. In this video, I'll be going through how you can discount with complete consideration of unit economics and without impacting the return on ad spend that you need to sit at to still be highly profitable. Now, firstly, why do we even need to be considerate of unit economics in the first place? So here's a quick example. If you have an average order value of $100 and your cost of goods sold is $60, you have a gross margin left of $40, which means that your break-even return on ad spend sits at a 2.5. If you were to run a 30% discount, your average order value drops to $70. Your cost of goods stays the same, which means that your break-even return on ad spend shoots up to a 7. Meaning that if you're running a sale, you have to have a 3x in the return on ad spend that you're currently achieving to sit at the same level of profitability. Now, in reality, this is flawed. It's not really true. And the reason why this example isn't true is because average order value normally increases when you run a sale. When you're discounting, people tend to want to buy more from you. And so in reality, average order value will likely go up to 120. However, cost of goods sold is 60% of the full retail price, which is 171. And so in this case, you have $102 of cost of goods sold, which results in an $18 gross margin, which is a break-even ROAS of 6.66. So it still isn't much better. Before, in this flawed model, we had a 7 break-even. Now we have a 6.66 break-even. It's really not much of an improvement. So it's really important that you're considering how you're discounting, so that you don't end up in a situation where you need to be achieving an 8, 9, 10 return on ad spend just to be profitable. Here's 3 considerate ways that you can approach discounting that's not going to have an impact on your bottom line. Number 1 is bundling products, and you bundle products which allows efficiency gains within shipping and 3PL fees. The second is gifts with order quantities. And the third is straight discounting, but you do it on high margin products and you do it in consideration of the curvature of required target return on ad spend as discounting increases. And I'll go through a calculator at the end of this video showcasing that. The first one is bundling products. And the reason why we bundle products and the premise of this discounting method is that you pass on the savings on pick and pack and shipping fees to the end consumer, which reduces the impact that it has on your margin. So let's run through an example, and we'll be using this example right here and these individual unit economics throughout all of these different examples that we're going to run through. So let's say that you sell beach towels at $50 per unit and you have a cost of goods sold of $15. Additionally, you have $5.50 of shipping fees and $3 in 3PL pick and pack fees. Therefore, your gross margin is 50 minus 15 minus 5.5 minus 3, which comes out to 26.50. Meaning your break-even ROAS is a 1.89. Let's run a sale where it's buy 2, get 25% off. So now our sale price is $75 a unit. We have a $30 cost of goods sold, and our shipping fee has inflated a little bit because now we have 2 towels instead of 1, but the shipping fee definitely doesn't double, it just increases slightly. And the 3PL pick and pack fees, for most 3PLs, they're going to add additional $1 to $2 per additional SKU that you have to put into the package. So we're going to get a little bit of efficiency here as well. Instead of it doubling to $6, it's just going to go up to about $4. And so what this means is that we get a savings of $6.50. And what I mean by a savings here is that if you were to sell 2 towels to 2 different customers and ship separately, you would have had to have paid $11 here and $6 here. Instead, we're only paying $6 and $4. So we get that savings by bundling it and shipping it to the one customer. Therefore, our gross margins, running the same calculation as before, comes down to $34.50. So our break-even ROAS is still relatively strong at only a 2.17. So there was a 14.8% inflation in what we now need to achieve to break even. But that isn't too bad. That's very, very achievable considering that we're running quite an aggressive discounting offer on the front end. That then leads me into option number 2, which is gifts with order quantities. The premise of this discounting method is that you use ultra high margin, low ticket products to incentivize increases in average order value, which minimizes your cost of goods sold and it maximizes the margin on the offering. What do I mean by this? Let's go back to the exact same example that we've been using. We have our towels, we have our break even, 1.89 ROAS, and let's change this with an offer of that if you buy 2 towels, you get a free beach bag that then holds the towels. And I'm actually blocking the image that I put here, so let me minimize myself for this slide. So in this case, our offering is changing to where we're selling 2 beach towels at full price, $100, with a cost of goods sold of $30. Our shipping fee is going to inflate. It's going to inflate a little bit more than the previous example because we're also putting this beach bag in there. Our 3PL cost will be a little bit more expensive as well compared to the previous example because now there's 3 items that are getting put into a package rather than 1. However, there still is some savings here. And then lastly, we also have an additional cost of the beach bag. And now a beach bag like this would cost an absolute maximum $4 to get from factory. And so we have that cost layered into this bundling offer, which takes our gross margin out to $53.50, which means our break-even ROAS is at a 1.87. So that's actually an improvement by 0.02 on the initial order. And so we've actually made the unit economics of the brand better by adding in a free beach bag. And the reason why this has worked so effectively is that number one, we've got slight savings on our shipping and 3PL pick and pack fees. It's not huge, but there's a little bit of savings here. But in addition, we've incentivized a much higher average order value without any detriment to margins on bottom line. And so adding in a free gift on a really low cost product is a really effective way that we can increase average order value and improve the entire unit economics of the sale. The added benefit here is that you can frame this offering however you would really like. You can change and match the front end messaging or the on page offer to really whatever. And what I mean by that is that you can say that the beach bag is worth $30, $40, and then you could change the entire offering and messaging here to this is a $140 package that's been discounted to $100. So you're running a 40% off sale. You could change it to save $40. You could change it to get a free beach bag that is exclusive. It's a one-time drop. We don't offer this often. So there's so many different ways that you can pick and pack and change the offering while keeping these exact same unit economics on the back end that puts you in a really, really strong position. The third and last option that I'm going to go through here when it comes to discounting is be really straightforward and just talk about straight discounting. This whole video is about how you shouldn't just walk into a sale and straight cut off 20%, straight cut off 30% off your products without any consideration to your unit economics and your break-even ROAS. But with that being said, I want to go against the premise of this entire video and talk about it, which is if you do want to do this, let's say you do just want to do a 10% off or 20% off. Let's say that's what your agency wants to do. That's what your in-house marketing manager wants to do. How should you approach it? What are the common mistakes and how can you do this correctly? Because there are enormous, highly successful brands that do just run a 20% off sale and they do it incredibly well and incredibly profitably. So why are they doing it so well and other brands don't? Common mistake number one is not calculating gross margin correctly. And about 75% of e-com business owners that I talk to make this mistake. And let me run you through an example. Let's use the beach bag and the towel again because we have all the numbers ready here. And so the beach towel we know has a $35 gross margin per unit, which comes out to 70%. And we know that with the bag, we'd normally sell this at about $17. We have a cost of goods of $4. So our gross margin sits at 76.5%. So naturally, if we were going to run a discounting offer at 20% off, a 30% off discount, it makes sense to run it on the beach bag as our offering to pull people in and to get first party data and start to acquire customers. That would be a huge mistake. And the reason why that would be a huge mistake is there's zero consideration of any of the other fees associated with the cost of delivery. So what about the shipping fees and the 3PL fees? Once we start to layer those in, look at how the gross margin changes. The beach towels now have a gross margin of 53%, down from 70. And the bags are now down to 38.2%, down from 76. And so having consideration of all fees associated with acquiring the product from factory to getting it to the customer is so important for knowing your actual numbers. And this also is inclusive of GST as well. I've seen a lot of brands that make calculations to the gross margin level and they're not factoring out GST in the retail price, which makes an enormous swing as well to bottom line gross margin. And I'll actually just minimize my camera here so you can see the entire slides for the rest of this video. And for context, there's the 70% and there's the 53%. Common mistake number 2 is discounting without calculating the needed ROAS. And this is relatively straightforward, and let's run through a recommended sale here of 20% off. With 20% off, we're selling the towels now at $40 a unit with a $15 cost of goods sold, which, running all of the same math, means that we now need a break-even ROAS of 2.42, which means that we need a 28% uplift just to break even on new customer acquisition. But what's an important caveat here is that break-even ROAS will increase linearly, but target ROAS for a degree of profitability will increase exponentially. And so you don't want to be using break-even ROAS calculations to align yourself with what you should be targeting and how aggressively you can be discounting, as this will not move in proportion to target ROAS. And here's what that actually means. So we have an internal discounting calculator where you can put in all of your unit economics, your shipping fees as SKU count increases and your additional 3PL fees as new SKUs are entered. And it will look at estimated AOV uplifts over time, and you can base this on actual historical data and historical sale data. And then you can look at how increases in discounting offer, flat discounting offer at the store level, impacts your break-even ROAS alongside the ROAS required to hit your target contribution numbers. And what you'll notice here is break-even ROAS increases relatively linearly. Every 5% increase in discounting, there's a consequential about 5 to 10% increase in break-even ROAS. However, ROAS required to hit $15 in contribution margin per order increases exponentially. And so what you end up finding with most brands is that there is a sweet spot that you can sit in where it makes sense to discount, and anything above then, the ROAS uptick required to maintain the same degree of profitability just does not make sense. And it's unfeasible to expect an agency or your in-house team to be able to yield such a large delta in ROAS based on a discounting offer. For example, in this instance, if we were to run a 40% off discount, we'd have to achieve a 7.5 ROAS. Now, with this brand and the unit economics that's based on this brand, we know that it's very, very difficult for these guys to achieve above a 5, even during sale periods. So it wouldn't make sense for us to go and do a 40% off discount and completely rely on the fact that we have to achieve a 7.5 to get $15 in contribution margin per order. It would be a ridiculous assumption, and so we wouldn't want to be structuring our offerings based on this. So just to recap the video, at the start, we talked about the impact that contribution margin has on discounting. If you discount, your break-even ROAS goes through the roof from a 2.5 to a 6.66. And as we even saw, break-even ROAS increases linearly, target ROAS increases exponentially. So if we're looking at target ROAS here, this would be the difference between a 4 and really a 20. We then went through the 3 different ways that you can be considerate of your discounting while still maximizing your P&L, which is number 1, bundling products, because when you bundle products, you gain efficiencies on shipping and 3PL fees that then directly can be passed on to the end consumer. We went through gifts with order quantities. So this incentivizes higher average order values while putting in gifts that are incredibly low cost. And then the last one was that you can straight discount if you would like, but you need to be highly considerate of what your actual gross margins are, and you need to factor in all costs associated, which will then allow you to do a predictive model based on where you can actually discount and whether you can achieve the ROAS required to maintain profitability on each order.